Part 1. The Galactic Joke. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between three star systems. It was neutral ground where the most powerful alien races came together. Today was special. Today, the Galactic Defense Summit would decide which ships would join the Alliance fleet. Every species wanted to show off their best warships. Commander Zethka of the Crystalline Empire stood on the observation deck. His tall, glass-like body sparkled with inner light as he watched ships arrive. His people had built vessels that could phase between dimensions. Energy flowed through their ships like blood through veins. No solid matter could touch them when they shifted between realities. "Look at that beauty," Zethka said to his aide. A massive crystal ship appeared in space, its surface reflecting starlight like a diamond. The ship was transparent and seemed to glow from within. Weapon ports opened like flowers, revealing energy cannons that could tear holes in space itself. Nearby, Ambassador Vex 9 of the cybernetic hegemony watched through mechanical eyes. His robotic body whirred softly as data streams flowed across his metal face. The hegemony's ships were different. They were black metal spheres covered in thousands of tiny lights. Each ship had an AI brain smarter than most organic species. These AI ships could think, learn, and repair themselves. They could even build copies of themselves during battle. "Processing fleet data," Vex 9 announced in his electronic voice. "Hegemony battle spheres show 97.3% efficiency rating. Enemy defeat probability, nearly certain." The third group to arrive made everyone stop talking. The ethereal collective's ships weren't built at all. They were grown, massive living creatures that swam through space like whales through an ocean. Their bioships breathed, pulsed with life, and could heal from terrible wounds. Some were miles long, with tentacles that could grab enemy vessels. Others looked like giant jellyfish with weapons that fired living projectiles. Elder Sixmoth of the Ethereals floated inside a bubble of gas that kept her alive. Her wispy form shifted like smoke as she spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "Our children of the void are ready for war. They hunger to protect the galaxy." Representatives from 50 other species filled the station. Each one brought their finest warships. The Flame Dancers had ships made of pure fire. The Stone Fathers built fortress ships from living rock. The Void Touched created vessels from dark matter itself. Then Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth requested permission to dock. "Unknown vessel approaching," the station's AI announced. "Design patterns, not recognized. Technology level, analyzing. Error, cannot determine." Through the massive viewing windows, everyone watched as something appeared at the edge of sensor range. At first, it looked like a small moon. As it came closer, the aliens realized it was actually a ship. But what a ship! The human vessel was enormous, but it looked like it had been built in a junkyard. Gray metal plates covered its hull, some newer than others. Different sections seemed to come from different time periods. Massive exhaust ports belched orange flame and black smoke into space. The ship rumbled and shook as it moved, like an old ground vehicle. "By the void," whispered Commander Zethka. "What is that thing?" The ship was covered in weapons, but they were all wrong. Instead of elegant energy beams or plasma projectors, this vessel had crude metal tubes sticking out of its hull. Gun barrels. Missile pods. Simple, primitive kinetic weapons that fired solid metal at high speed. "It's huge," said someone in the crowd. The ship was indeed massive. Larger than most of the alien vessels, but it looked heavy and slow. Its hull was thick and blocky. There were windows, actual transparent windows instead of holographic displays. Lights flickered along its surface where crew members moved inside. The most shocking part was the flight deck. The aliens could see it through the ship's open hangar bays. Hundreds of small craft sat inside, but they weren't sleek energy fighters. They were tiny metal boxes with wings powered by chemical rockets. Each one had a clear bubble on top where a pilot sat. "Attention Nexus Prime," came a voice over the communication system. It was crisp and professional, but everyone could hear the difference. This wasn't an AI or a telepathic message. It was an organic being using sound waves to communicate. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Indomitable, requesting permission to dock for the Defense Summit." The station fell silent. Then, slowly, someone began to laugh. It was a sound like breaking glass, Commander Zethka trying not to show his amusement. Soon others joined in, the mechanical clicking of Vex 9's laugh program, the musical tones of ethereal mirth. "They can't be serious," Zethka said to his aide. "That thing looks like it was built 1,000 years ago." "Confirmed," replied Vex 9, his mechanical head tilting as he analyzed the ship. "Hull composition, iron-steel alloys. Propulsion, chemical reaction drives. Weapons, kinetic projectile systems. Technology rating, primitive by galactic standards." Elder Six Moth's gaseous form rippled with what might have been laughter. "The small ones bring their first ship to the great waters. How quaint." More alien representatives pressed against the viewing windows to see the human vessel. The comments weren't kind. "Look at that armor plating. It's so thick and heavy. Chemical rockets. Do they even have faster-than-light travel? Those weapons couldn't scratch a modern shield system. Are those actual physical windows on the bridge? The ship is leaking atmosphere. I can see gas venting from dozens of holes. Probably falling apart as we watch." Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system again. "Nexus Prime Control, we're ready to participate in the war games against the Void Swarm simulation. The Indomitable is fully operational and awaiting orders." This caused another wave of laughter. The Void Swarm was the most feared enemy the galaxy had ever known. They were living ships that consumed energy and turned destroyed vessels into more of themselves. They adapted to any weapon used against them. Fighting them required the most advanced technology available. "Surely they don't intend to actually fight," said Ambassador Kelrix of the Trade Federation. "That vessel would be destroyed before it could fire a single shot." Commander Zethka activated his personal communicator. "Control, this is the Crystal Empire delegation. We formally request that the human vessel be classified as a support ship only, for their own safety." "Seconded," announced Vex 9. "Human technology insufficient for combat operations. Recommend relegation to supply duties." Elder Six Moth agreed with a sound like wind through crystals. "The small ones should not swim with the great hunters. They will be consumed quickly." But Admiral Chen's response surprised everyone. Her voice remained calm and professional. "Nexus Prime Control, we appreciate the concern from our new allies. However, Earth's fleet is here to fight. We've been dealing with hostile forces for quite some time. The Indomitable and her crew are ready for whatever the galaxy can throw at us." The human ship finished its docking procedure with surprising skill. Despite its crude appearance, the pilots clearly knew what they were doing. The massive vessel settled into its assigned berth with the gentleness of a soap bubble landing on water. Through the station's internal cameras, everyone could see humans for the first time. They were small, only about 6 feet tall on average. Their bodies were soft and fragile-looking, without natural armor or energy shields. They wore simple uniforms and moved with quick, efficient purpose. Admiral Chen herself was a middle-aged woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She walked into the main conference hall wearing a plain blue uniform covered in small metal decorations. No glowing crystals, no cybernetic enhancements, no bioengineered improvements. Just a human being. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all classifications," she said to the assembled representatives, "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Fleet. We're honored to join the Galactic Defense Alliance and look forward to working with all of your species." Commander Zethka couldn't help himself. "Admiral Chen, we've reviewed your vessel's specifications. Are you certain it's combat ready?" Our ships operate at energy levels that might damage less advanced systems. Chen smiled. It was a strange expression that showed her white teeth. The Indomitable has been in active service for 12 years. She's seen combat in the Titan campaign, the Mars Rebellion, and the Asteroid Wars. We've learned to build ships that keep working when everything else fails. But your weapons, said Vex 9, his mechanical voice carrying a hint of confusion. They appear to be simple kinetic projectiles. How do they penetrate modern defensive systems? Sometimes the old ways work best, Chen replied. A chunk of metal moving fast enough doesn't care about energy shields or adaptive armor. It just hits what it's aimed at. The aliens exchanged glances that clearly said they thought the humans were either brave or incredibly stupid. Elder Six Moth floated closer. Small Admiral, your courage honors your species, but the Void Swarm consumes energy and converts matter. How will your solid weapons affect creatures that eat starships? Chen's smile grew wider. I guess we'll find out during the war games, won't we? The briefing continued for several hours. Each species presented their battle plans and ship capabilities. The presentations were full of advanced technology, energy manipulation, and quantum mechanics. When it was Part 2. First contact with horror. 3 weeks passed quickly at Nexus Prime. The alien fleets had practiced their formations and tested their weapons. The humans mostly kept to themselves, running simple drills with their primitive fighters. Most of the alien commanders stopped paying attention to the Earthship after the first few days. It was just too basic to be interesting. Commander Zethka was reviewing battle plans when the alarms started screaming. Emergency broadcast on all channels, announced the station's AI. Large fleet detected at the Kepler defense perimeter. Classification, unknown. Size, massive. Every species representative rushed to the command center. The main display showed a map of local space with thousands of red dots appearing at the galaxy's edge. At first, everyone thought it was a sensor error. No fleet could be that large. Confirm reading, ordered Fleet Admiral Crixith of the United Species Command. Confirmed, replied the AI. Detecting approximately 4,000 vessels of unknown configuration. They are moving toward populated systems at sublight speed. Commander Zethka felt his crystal body grow cold. 4,000 ships? That's impossible. The largest fleet on record was only 800 vessels. The display zoomed in on the approaching fleet. What they saw made everyone fall silent. These weren't ships in any normal sense. They were alive, massive creatures swimming through space like deep-sea monsters. Some looked like giant squids with tentacles miles long. Others resembled enormous jellyfish with transparent bodies full of swirling light. The largest ones were like whales, but covered in bone armor and glowing eyes. By the void, whispered Elder Six Moth. Those are Void Swarm ships. Everyone knew about the Void Swarm, but they had only seen small groups before, maybe 10 or 20 ships attacking outer colonies. This was different. This was an invasion fleet. Admiral Vex 9's mechanical body clicked and whirred as he processed the data. Calculating threat level. Error. Threat level exceeds maximum parameters. Recommended action. Immediate evacuation of all inhabited systems. We can't evacuate the entire galaxy, said Fleet Admiral Crixith. All available fleets are ordered to intercept at the Kepler line. This is not a drill. The next few hours were chaos. Every species launched their finest warships. The Crystal Empire sent 50 phase ships that sparkled like diamonds in space. The cybernetic hegemony deployed 100 AI battlespheres that moved in perfect formation. The Ethereal Collective released 30 of their largest bioships, creatures the size of small moons. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the Indomitable's bridge as the alien fleets formed up. Her ship looked tiny and crude next to the elegant vessels around them. Her officers stood at their stations, checking old-fashioned instruments and mechanical controls. Admiral, said Captain Rodriguez, her second in command. "The other fleets are requesting we stay back and provide support only." "I bet they are," Chen replied with a small smile. "Tell them we appreciate their concern, but Earth Fleet will take its assigned position in the battle line." "Ma'am, are you sure? Those void things? They don't look like anything we've fought before." Chen looked out at the enemy fleet growing larger on the display. "Rodriguez, we've been fighting wars since before we had fire. Every enemy looks different. But war is still war. The Indomitable and her crew will do their job." The human ship moved into position with the rest of the fleet. They were assigned to the far right flank, away from the main fighting. Everyone expected them to be destroyed quickly, so they put them where their loss wouldn't affect the battle. The Void Swarm fleet arrived 2 days later. Commander Zethka stood on his flagship's bridge as the enemy came into weapon range. Up close, the Void creatures were even more terrifying. They weren't just alive, they were hungry. He could see smaller creatures swimming around the larger ones, like remora fish around sharks. Some of the Void ships pulsed with stolen light from destroyed worlds. "All crystal ships, prepare for phase shift attack," Zethka ordered. "Target the lead creatures." 50 crystal ships suddenly became transparent and shifted into the space between dimensions. From this phase state, they could fire energy weapons that couldn't be blocked or dodged. Their beams would punch through normal matter like it didn't exist. The phase ships opened fire. Brilliant streams of pure energy lanced out at the Void creatures. The beams hit their targets, and for a moment, the aliens cheered. Several Void ships writhed and screamed as the energy tore through them. But then something impossible happened. The wounded Void creatures began to glow with the same energy that had hurt them. Their bodies shifted and became partially transparent. Within minutes, they had learned to phase shift just like the crystal ships. "That's impossible," Zethka said, his voice shaking. "Phase technology took our species 10,000 years to develop. The Void creatures that had learned to phase shift turned their new ability against the crystal fleet." They reached into the dimensional space where the crystal ships were hiding and grabbed them with massive tentacles. Ship after ship was pulled back into normal space and crushed. "All ships, emergency retreat," Zethka ordered, but it was too late. Half his fleet was already gone. Admiral Vex 9 watched the crystal ships fall and calculated his next move. His AI battlespheres were smarter and more tactical than any organic crew. They would use coordinated attacks and superior firepower to win. "All units, implement attack pattern Omega 7, he transmitted. "Target enemy command vessels." The 100 black spheres moved with mechanical precision. They fired synchronized volleys of plasma and antimatter warheads. Their targeting was perfect. Their timing was flawless. Their strategy was brilliant. For exactly 37 seconds, the Void Swarm's hive intelligence analyzed the attack patterns and learned them completely. The creatures began moving in formation, predicting exactly where each AI ship would fire. They dodged attacks before the weapons were even launched. Worse, some of the Void creatures began splitting apart and forming smaller spheres that mimicked the AI ship's appearance. Within minutes, there were fake battle spheres mixed in with the real ones, and even Vex 9's advanced sensors couldn't tell them apart. "This is impossible," Vex 9 said, his electronic voice carrying a hint of panic. "They are adapting faster than our tactical algorithms can compensate." The AI fleet began, falling back. But the Void creatures followed. Every destroyed battlesphere was quickly consumed and turned into another enemy vessel. Elder Sixmoth felt her bioship's fear through their shared connection. Her children were brave, but they could sense something wrong with these enemies. Still, the ethereal collective had lived in space longer than any other race. Their bioships could regenerate from almost any damage. "My children, show these void spawn the fury of living space," she commanded. The 30 massive bioships surged forward. They were beautiful and terrible, like living planets with tentacles and glowing organs. Some fired missiles that were actually living creatures. Others released clouds of corrosive biomatter. The largest ones tried to ram the void creatures directly. At first, it worked. The bioship's organic nature seemed to confuse the void swarm. Their living weapons caused real damage, and their ability to heal made them tough opponents. But the void creatures were also alive, and they were hungry. As the battle continued, some of the wounded bioships began changing. Their healing systems were being corrupted. Instead of fixing damage, they started growing new parts that didn't belong. Tentacles became claws. Eyes became mouths full of sharp teeth. "My children," Sixmoth whispered in horror. "What's happening to my children?" The infected bioships turned on their own fleet. They had become part of the void swarm, their crews consumed or converted. Elder Sixmoth felt each transformation through her psychic link, and the pain nearly drove her insane. Within an hour, the three most advanced fleets in the galaxy were broken. Ships fled in all directions, while the void swarm continued its advance toward inhabited worlds. The few surviving commanders sent desperate messages calling for full evacuation of the outer systems. Admiral Chen listened to the emergency broadcasts from her position on the far flank. Around her, the Indomitable's crew worked quietly at their stations. They had watched the entire battle, taking notes and recording everything. "Admiral," said Commander Torres from the weapons station, "should we withdraw with the others?" "Negative," Chen replied. "Signal all human ships. We're moving to intercept." "Ma'am?" Captain Rodriguez looked shocked. "The entire alien fleet was just destroyed. They had energy weapons, AI ships, and living vessels. We've got bullets and missiles." Chen stood up from her command chair and looked out at the approaching void swarm. The creatures were larger now, having consumed hundreds of advanced alien ships. They pulsed with stolen energy and moved with the confidence of predators who had never met their match. "Rodriguez, do you remember the Mars Rebellion?" "Yes, ma'am. 12 years ago. The rebels had better ships, better weapons, and better technology. They had orbital platforms that could crack a planet's surface. We had old cruisers and stubborn crews." "Yes, ma'am." "What did we do?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. "We won anyway." "That's right. We won because we didn't fight their kind of war. We fought our kind of war." Chen activated the fleet communication system. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Part 3. Primitives in Action." The human fleet moved toward the void swarm like a pack of wolves approaching a herd of elephants. Admiral Chen stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching the enemy creatures grow larger on the screen. Behind her, the crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. "Distance to target, 2 million kilometers and closing," reported Lieutenant Park from the navigation station. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Chen ordered. "Remember, we're not here to impress anyone. We're here to win." The void creatures moved to meet them. These monsters had just destroyed the galaxy's finest fleets, adapting to every weapon and tactic used against them. They approached the human ships with the confidence of predators who had never lost a battle. The first void creature that engaged was massive, the size of a small moon. It had tentacles over a mile long and was covered in the glowing remains of Crystal Empire technology. The creature expected to drain the human ship's energy systems like it had done to every other vessel. Instead, the Indomitable opened fire with something completely unexpected. Thousands of metal slugs flew through space at incredible speed. Simple chunks of iron and steel launched by magnetic rails. No energy signatures for the creature to drain. No complex systems to analyze and copy. Just metal moving very, very fast. The void creature's adaptive defenses had no idea what to do. How do you adapt to something that isn't using technology? How do you counter pure physics? The metal slugs punched through the creature's bio-armor like bullets through paper. Each impact created massive wounds that couldn't heal because there was nothing to learn from. The creature writhed in pain and confusion as hundreds of simple projectiles tore it apart. "Target eliminated," reported Commander Torres from the weapons station. "Moving to next target." But the real surprise came when the Indomitable opened its massive hangar bays. Hundreds of small fighters poured out like angry wasps from a disturbed hive. Each fighter was a simple metal box with wings, powered by chemical rockets. Inside each cockpit sat a human pilot, flying by instinct and experience rather than computer assistance. Commander Zethka watched from his damaged flagship in disbelief. Those fighters, they don't have any AI systems. How do they coordinate their attacks? The human pilots weren't coordinating in any way the aliens understood. There were no data links, no shared targeting systems, no synchronized battle plans. Instead, they flew like a flock of birds, each pilot watching the others and reacting instantly to changing conditions. Pilot Maria Santos pulled her fighter into a sharp turn as a void creature's tentacles swept past her cockpit. Her instruments were simple: speed, altitude, fuel, and ammunition. No computer told her where to go or what to shoot. She flew by feel, the way humans had always flown. "This is Raven 2, she called over the radio. "I've got a big ugly one. On my 6. Anyone want to help me out?" "Copy, Raven 2. This is Eagle Flight coming in from above." 4 fighters dove from different directions, their weapons spitting metal projectiles at the void creature chasing Santos. The creature tried to predict their attack patterns but couldn't. Each pilot was making split-second decisions based on intuition and experience. There was no pattern to analyze, no algorithm to counter. The void swarm had faced energy weapons, plasma beams, and quantum torpedoes. They had learned to drain power systems and adapt to complex technologies. But they had never faced anything like this. Hundreds of individual minds working together without any central control. Lieutenant Jack Williams flew his fighter through a cloud of smaller void creatures, his cannons blazing. Each shot was a simple bullet fired by a chemical explosion. The creatures couldn't adapt to gunpowder because there was nothing to adapt to. It was just controlled fire propelling metal forward. "These things don't like good old-fashioned lead," Williams reported. "Recommend all fighters switch to kinetic rounds." The human fighters swarmed through the void fleet like piranhas attacking a whale. They were small and fast, too numerous to catch individually. When one fighter was damaged, others immediately moved to protect it. When a pilot was in trouble, the nearest fighters abandoned their own targets to help. Admiral Vex 9's mechanical mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. This makes no logical sense. Their tactics are chaotic. There's no central command structure. How are they achieving such effectiveness? Elder Sixmoth, still reeling from the loss of her bioships, provided the answer. "They're not fighting like machines or hive minds. They're fighting like a pack. Each one protects the others." The Indomitable itself became a fortress in space. While its fighters engaged the smaller void creatures, the massive carrier used its bulk to shield damaged alien vessels. Its thick armor plating, which had seemed so primitive compared to energy shields, proved surprisingly effective against the void creature's energy drain attacks. "Admiral," called Captain Rodriguez, "the Crystal Empire flagship is requesting permission to dock. They've lost main power and life support." "Granted," Chen replied immediately. "Bay 7 is open and ready." Commander Zethka couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were offering refuge to aliens who had mocked them just hours earlier. His damaged crystal ship limped toward the human carrier's hangar bay, seeking shelter from the monsters his own weapons couldn't stop. As Zethka's ship docked, he saw human crew members running toward it with rescue equipment. They didn't hesitate to help beings they barely knew, even in the middle of a battle. Medical teams rushed forward with stretchers and emergency supplies, treating wounded crystal beings with techniques they had learned from books just days earlier. Battle raged for hours. The void creatures tried everything they had learned from previous encounters. They attempted to phase shift like the crystal ships, but the humans weren't using phase technology. They tried to predict attack patterns like they had with the AI vessels, but the human pilots kept changing their tactics. Most frustrating of all, they tried to corrupt and convert the human ships like they had done to the bio vessels. But the human technology was too simple to corrupt. You can't reprogram a bullet or hack a chemical explosion. Pilot Sarah Kim found herself surrounded by 3 void creatures. Her fighter was damaged and running low on ammunition. In any other fleet, she would have been ordered to retreat or sacrifice herself for the greater good. Instead, her wingman immediately broke formation to help her. Then 2 more fighters joined in. Soon, half a squadron was focused on rescuing one pilot, even though it meant leaving other targets undefended. "Raven Leader, this is command," came Admiral Chen's voice over the radio. "You have multiple fighters off mission to assist one pilot." "Copy command," replied Squadron Leader Martinez. "No one gets left behind." "Understood. Carry on." This was the moment that changed everything. The alien observers realized they weren't just watching a military operation. They were seeing something much more dangerous. A species that fought not just to win, but to ensure everyone went home alive. The void creatures, for the first time in their existence, began to retreat. It started slowly, one creature backing, away from a swarm of human fighters. Then another pulling back from the Indomitable's relentless metal barrage. The hive mind that connected them was confused and uncertain. These primitive beings weren't following any known pattern of warfare. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Park, "enemy fleet is beginning to withdraw from the engagement zone." Admiral Chen nodded. "Maintain pressure, but don't pursue beyond our support range. Let them go for now." As the void swarm pulled back, the surviving alien ships gathered around the human fleet. Many were damaged and seeking assistance. The Indomitable's hangar bays filled with refugees from a dozen different species. Ambassador Vex 9's mechanical form sat in the carrier's medical bay, his systems being repaired by a human engineer with basic tools. "I do not understand," he said to the young technician. "Our weapons were more advanced. Our ships were faster and more powerful. How did your primitive technology succeed where we failed?" The engineer, a woman named Lisa Chen, who might have been the Admiral's daughter, looked up from her work. "Sometimes the best tool isn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it's the one that actually works when everything else breaks down. But your fighters had no central coordination. Your weapons were centuries behind our technology." Lisa smiled and returned to her work. "Maybe that's why they worked. The void things were expecting fancy stuff. We gave them rocks and sticks, and they didn't know what to do with that." In the observation lounge, surviving alien commanders watched. Human pilots returning to their ships. Many fighters were damaged, some barely holding together. But every pilot who had launched was coming home alive. Commander Zethka's crystal form was dim with exhaustion and shame. "They saved us," he said quietly. "We mocked their primitive ships, and they saved us anyway." Elder Sixmoth floated nearby, her gaseous form wavering with emotion. "I felt their pilots' minds during the battle. Each one was terrified, but they fought anyway. Not for glory or conquest, but for each other." "Analysis complete," announced Vex 9 as he joined them. "Human success was not due to superior technology. It was due to superior tactics adapted to their capabilities. They fought a type of war the Void Swarm had never encountered." Outside the windows, the human fleet maintained formation. The Indomitable sat in the Part 4, the pack. Unleashed. The battle should have been over. The Void Swarm was retreating, and the human fleet was escorting damaged alien ships to safety. But space warfare rarely goes according to plan. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was flying patrol when her sensors picked up something terrifying. A massive void creature, larger than anything they had seen before, was moving to cut off their escape route. This wasn't part of the retreating force. This was something new, something that had been waiting. "Command, this is Raven 7. Kim reported over the radio. "I've got a big problem on long-range sensors. Really big." Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display and felt her blood run cold. The creature was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Indomitable. Worse, it wasn't alone. Dozens of smaller void ships surrounded it like an escort fleet. "All ships, emergency formation change," Chen ordered. "Move the damaged vessels to the center. Combat ships form a protective screen." Commander Zethka watched from the Indomitable's medical bay where human doctors were treating his injuries. His crystal form flickered weakly as he saw the approaching threat. "Admiral Chen," he said through the communication system, "my ship still has some weapons operational. We can fight." "Negative, Commander," Chen replied firmly. "Your people are hurt and your ship is barely holding together. Stay in the protected zone." "But Admiral, that creature will destroy all of us. Your duty right now is to survive, so you can help rebuild your fleet later. We've got this." Zethka fell silent. In Crystal Empire culture, honor demanded that warriors fight to the death, rather than accept protection from others. But he was beginning to understand that humans had a different definition of honor. The massive void creature closed in on the human fleet. As it approached, the aliens could see that it was different from the others. This one looked like it had been feeding for centuries. Its hull was covered in the remains of thousands of consumed ships. Weapons from dozens of different civilizations bristled from its surface. "Sweet Mother of Earth," whispered Captain Rodriguez. "That thing is a graveyard." The creature had learned from every battle it had ever fought. Energy weapons from the Crystal Empire, AI systems from the cybernetic hegemony, biotechnology from the ethereal collective. It was a living museum of conquered civilizations. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres, "that creature is targeting the transport ships carrying civilian refugees." Chen's jaw tightened. The damaged alien vessels were full of non-combatants, scientists, diplomats, and injured crew members who couldn't fight back. In any normal military situation, the logical choice would be to abandon them and save the combat vessels. But humans don't think logically when their pack is threatened. "All fighters, emergency launch," Chen ordered. "Form up on the refugee ships. Nothing gets through." "Ma'am," said Rodriguez quietly, "we'll be outnumbered 50-1. Then we better make sure each shot counts." Pilot Maria Santos was in the fighter launch bay when the alarm sounded. She had just returned from the previous battle, and her fighter was low on fuel and ammunition. The smart thing would be to stand down and let the fresh pilots handle this fight. Instead, she ran toward her damaged fighter. "Santos, where are you going?" called Chief Martinez. "Your bird is down for maintenance." "Not anymore," Santos replied, jumping into her cockpit. "Those refugee ships have kids on board, Crystal Empire younglings and ethereal children. I'm not sitting this one out." All around the hangar bay, human pilots were making the same choice. Damaged fighters were being hastily patched with metal plates and prayers. Pilots who should have been in the medical bay were climbing into cockpits. Even the maintenance crews were volunteering to fly anything that could move. Lieutenant Jack Williams was one of the first to launch. His fighter was running on fumes and held together with emergency patches, but he flew straight toward the massive void creature anyway. "This is Eagle Leader to all fighters," he announced. "Remember, we're not trying to kill that big bastard. We just need to keep it away from the transports long enough for them to escape." "Copy, Eagle Leader," came the responses from dozens of pilots. "No one gets left behind." The massive void creature opened fire with weapon systems from 100. Different civilizations, energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and biomissiles filled space like a deadly fireworks display. Any one of those weapons could destroy a human fighter with a direct hit. So the humans didn't get hit. They flew like madmen, using every trick they had learned in decades of warfare. They skimmed along asteroid surfaces and dove through debris fields. They used the gravity wells of nearby planets to slingshot around enemy fire. Most importantly, They watched each other's backs with the intensity of a pack protecting its young. When pilot Sarah Kim's fighter was targeted by 3 enemy missiles, 2 other pilots immediately broke formation to help her. They flew directly into the missile path, using their own ships as shields to protect their wingmate. "Kim, brake left," shouted Pilot Chen over the radio. "We've got your missiles." "Negative," Kim replied. "I can handle them. Stay on your targets." "Like hell. Nobody flies alone." This was the moment that Elder Sixmoth truly understood what she was witnessing. She floated in the Indomitable's observation lounge, watching the human fighters protect each other with a devotion that went beyond military duty. "They're not just warriors," she whispered to herself. "They're family." The massive void creature was confused by the human tactics. It had faced countless fleets that used logical formations and optimal strategies. But these fighters weren't fighting optimally. They were fighting emotionally, making decisions based on protecting each other rather than achieving victory. When one fighter was damaged, 3 others would escort it to safety, even if it meant abandoning their attack runs. When a pilot was trapped behind enemy lines, half a squadron would risk everything to bring them home. It was tactically inefficient and strategically unsound. It was also completely unstoppable. Admiral Vex 9 watched from the Indomitable's bridge, his mechanical mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "Admiral Chen," he said, "your pilots are operating at 23% efficiency compared to optimal attack patterns." "I know," Chen replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. "But they are achieving 340% effectiveness compared to predicted outcomes." "That's because they're not just fighting for victory, Admiral. They're fighting for each other." The battle reached its climax when the massive void creature made a direct charge at the transport ships. The human fighters formed a living shield between the monster and the refugees, pouring everything they had into its forward armor. Pilot Williams found himself directly in the creature's path. His fighter was out of ammunition and nearly out of fuel. The logical thing to do was retreat. Instead, he pointed his nose at the creature's largest eye and pushed his engines to maximum. "Eagle leader to all ships," he announced calmly. "It's been an honor flying with you." Before he could complete his ramming run, 20 other fighters surrounded him. They formed a protective formation, using their own ships to shield Williams from the creature's defensive fire while simultaneously attacking its sensory organs. "Eagle leader, this is Raven Flight," came Maria Santos's voice. "You're not dying today. We need you for the victory party." The combined attack blinded the massive creature temporarily. In that moment of confusion, the transport ships escaped to safe distance. The refugee vessels, carrying thousands of alien civilians, jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared into the safety of deep space. The void creature roared in frustration, a sound that traveled through space as a psychic scream. It had been denied its prey by a handful of primitive fighters that should have been destroyed in seconds. But the humans weren't done yet. Admiral Chen's voice came over all frequencies, addressing not just her own fleet, but every surviving alien ship in the area. "All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. The civilians are safe. Now we finish this." The Indomitable moved forward, its massive bulk shielding the smaller ships as they maneuvered for attack positions. The human carrier wasn't trying to destroy the giant creature. It was drawing its attention, making itself the biggest target so the fighters could attack from blind spots. Commander Zethka watched from the medical bay as human crew members ran through the corridors, carrying supplies and ammunition to their fighters. Many of these humans were injured themselves, but they worked anyway. Some had burns from energy weapons. Others had broken bones from crash landings. All of them refused to stop working while their people were in danger. "Why?" he asked a young human medic who was changing his bandages. "Why do your people risk so much for others?" The medic, a woman barely out of her teens, looked at him with surprise. "Because that's what you do," she said simply. "When someone needs help, you help them." It's not complicated, but it was complicated, Zethka realized. Most civilizations had rules about acceptable losses and strategic priorities. They would sacrifice individuals for the greater good without hesitation. Humans seemed to operate on the principle that everyone mattered equally, even if it meant taking terrible risks. The battle continued for another hour. The massive void creature fought with the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 conquered worlds, but it couldn't overcome the one thing it had never encountered before. Part 5. Recognition of the Real Warriors. 2 weeks after the battle, representatives from across the galaxy gathered aboard the UES Indomitable. The human carrier floated in space near Nexus Prime Station, its hull still bearing scars from the AE fight with the Void Swarm. Repair crews worked around the clock, welding new plates over damaged sections and replacing blown weapon systems. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the ship's corridors, greeting the alien delegates who had come to see her. The interior of the Indomitable was nothing like their elegant vessels. Plain metal walls, harsh lighting, and the constant hum of mechanical systems. But it felt solid and real in a way that their advanced ships somehow didn't. Commander Zethka moved slowly through the ship, still recovering from his injuries. His crystal form had lost some of its brilliance, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. He paused at an observation window to watch human crew members working in space, repairing damage to the outer hull. They don't use robots for repairs, he noted to Elder Sixmoth, who floated beside him in her containment suit. No, she replied, her voice like wind chimes. They trust each other more than they trust machines. Through the window, they watched a human engineer named Chen, no relation to the Admiral, working on a damaged weapon mount. The repair should have been simple, but the mounting brackets had been twisted by enemy fire. Chen could have cut away the damaged section and installed a replacement, but instead he was carefully straightening each piece by hand. Why doesn't he just replace it? Asked Admiral Vex 9, his mechanical form clicking softly as he joined them. Elder Sixmoth had learned to read human emotions during her time aboard the ship. Because this ship is home. Humans don't throw away pieces of home just because they're damaged. They fix them. The main conference room was packed with representatives from 40 different species. Some sat in chairs designed for their biology. Others floated in environmental suits or rested on special platforms. All of them were here for the same reason, to understand how humans had succeeded where they had failed. Admiral Chen entered the room wearing her simple blue uniform. No glowing crystals, no cybernetic enhancements, no bioengineered improvements. Just a middle-aged woman who looked tired but determined. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, she began. Thank you all for coming. I know many of you have questions about the recent engagement with the Void Swarm. Ambassador Krelvex of the Trade Federation stood up. His 6 arms gestured expressively as he spoke. Admiral Chen, our combined fleets possessed the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Energy, weapons that could tear through dimensions. AI systems smarter than most organic brains. Living ships that could regenerate from any damage. Yet we were defeated in hours. That's correct, Chen replied simply. But your fleet... Krelvex paused, searching for diplomatic words. Your ships appeared primitive by comparison. Chemical, rockets, kinetic weapons, manual controls. How did you succeed where we failed? Chen was quiet for a moment, looking around the room at the assembled aliens. Many of them had fought bravely in the battle. Some had lost friends and comrades. All of them deserved an honest answer. You built ships to showcase your technology, she said finally. We built ours to bring our people home. Commander Zethka leaned forward in his crystal seat. But Admiral, our weapons were more powerful. Our defenses were more sophisticated. Our tactical systems were more advanced. Yes, they were, Chen agreed. And that's exactly why the Void Swarm could beat you. The room fell silent. Several alien representatives looked confused or offended. Chen activated a holographic display showing footage from the battle. The Void Swarm adapts to whatever it encounters. Energy weapons, they learn to drain energy. AI tactics, they analyze the algorithms and counter them. Biotechnology, they corrupt it and turn it against you. The hologram showed void creatures learning to phase shift after encountering Crystal Empire ships. It showed them predicting AI battle formations and corrupting ethereal biovessels. But they couldn't adapt to us, Chen continued, because we weren't using technology they could learn from. A bullet is just metal moving fast. There's nothing to analyze or copy. A human pilot making split-second decisions based on instinct? There's no algorithm to predict. Elder Sixmoth's gaseous form shimmered with understanding. You fought them, with chaos instead of order. Not chaos, Chen corrected gently. Humanity. We fought them the way humans have always fought. Together, protecting each other, refusing to give up. The hologram switched to show human fighters swarming around damaged alien ships, providing protection while asking for nothing in return. It showed the Indomitable's crew working tirelessly to repair vessels from species that had mocked them just days earlier. Admiral Vex 9's mechanical voice carried a note of confusion. But Admiral, your tactics were grossly inefficient. Your pilots abandoned optimal attack patterns to protect single individuals. From a logical standpoint, such behavior should have resulted in defeat. Chen smiled. That strange human expression that showed her teeth. Admiral Vex, have you ever had a family? I am an artificial intelligence. I do not reproduce or form emotional attachments. That's your answer right there. You see protecting others as inefficient because you're calculating the mathematical cost. We see it as the whole point of fighting in the first place. She gestured to the assembled aliens around the room. Every one of you fought bravely, but you fought to win. We fought to make sure everyone went home alive. That's not inefficient. That's what makes us human. Captain Rodriguez entered the room and whispered something to Admiral Chen. She nodded and addressed the gathering. I've just received word that long-range sensors have detected the Void Swarm regrouping at the galaxy's edge. They're building up for another attack, probably within the next few months. Panic rippled through the room. The first attack had almost destroyed the combined galactic fleets. A second attack would likely succeed. Which is why, Chen continued calmly, the Galactic Defense Council has asked Earth Fleet to coordinate the galaxy's military response. Commander Zethka stood up so quickly that his crystal form rang like a bell. Admiral, with all due respect, the Earth Fleet has only 12 ships. How can you possibly coordinate the defense of the entire galaxy? Because numbers aren't everything, Commander. You've got thousands of ships, but you've been thinking about this war all wrong. Chen walked to the holographic display and called up a star map showing the galaxy's major population centers. You've been trying to build the perfect weapon to fight the Void Swarm. Energy beams they can't drain, AI systems they can't hack, bioships they can't corrupt. But that's not how you beat an adaptive enemy. She highlighted several key systems on the map. You beat them by being unpredictable, by fighting dirty, by using tactics they've never seen before and can't prepare for. What are you proposing? Asked Ambassador Krelvex. I'm proposing we fight like humans. Every species in this room has unique advantages. The Crystal Empire can phase between dimensions. The cybernetic hegemony has processing power beyond imagination. The ethereal collective has living ships that think for themselves. The star map changed to show battle formations that mixed different species together. But you've all been fighting separately, using your strengths in isolation. What if we combined them? What if we made every fleet unpredictable by mixing human chaos with alien order? Elder Sixmoth floated closer to the display. You want our bioships to work with your kinetic weapons? I want your bioships to learn from human. Pilots who fly by instinct. I want crystal phase ships supporting human fighters who can't be predicted. I want AI battlespheres working with human crews who think outside any algorithm. The room buzzed with excited conversation as the aliens began to understand. They had been thinking about the war in terms of their individual technologies. Humans, We're thinking about it in terms of cooperation. Admiral Vex 9's mechanical head tilted as he processed this new concept. You are proposing a complete restructuring of galactic military doctrine. I'm proposing we stop trying to out-tech the Void Swarm and start out-thinking them instead. Commander Zethka looked around the room at his fellow commanders. Admiral Chen, if we agree to this joint command structure, what guarantee do we have that Earth will honor its commitments to protect all species equally? Chen's expression became serious. Commander, 3 weeks ago your people called our ship a floating junkyard. You laughed at our primitive weapons and crude technology. When the Void Swarm attacked, we could have let you face them alone. She gestured toward the window where human repair crews were still working on damaged alien vessels. Instead, we put our people at risk to save yours. We brought your wounded aboard our ship and treated them like family. That's not a guarantee. That's who we are. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this. They had witnessed human behavior during the battle, but hearing it stated so simply made it even more powerful. The Void Swarm thinks in terms of consumption and adaptation, Chen continued. They see other life forms as resources to be harvested. We see other life forms as people to be protected. That's the real difference between us and them. Elder. Sixmoth spoke for the group. Admiral Chen, the Ethereal Collective formally requests to join the Earth-Coordinated Defense Fleet.